Jon Schieszer, welcome to Center Stage.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate you having me in here.
Now, tell me about life on the road as a comedian. Not an easy gig, huh?
Not an easy gig. Even getting the gigs is oftentimes not easy, but it's fun. It's a good experience, and one thing I've taken from doing shows on the road or across the country is just when you thought you knew what America was, you're like, all right, well, apparently people that live in Eastern Washington act like this. It's a great way to see the country, and I've been places that I never would have dreamed, about of going to or seeing. So it's good. It's good in a lot of ways, and then of course the stage time and getting new fans, and just a lot of people don't ever see stand up, and I mentioned Eastern Washington. I was outside of Spokane, and after the show, half the people came up and were just blown away, shook my hand. Thanks for coming out. We never get to see stuff like this. And, comedy's in the last, few years is starting to come back kind of to where it was. Well, hopefully to where it was in the 80s, where, there were people knew who stand-up comedians were. It wasn't just like Chris Rock and Dan Cook. People knew offhand 8, 10 different comics, and right now there's a lot of good stand-up. So you start off doing gigs in Eastern Washington, and soon enough you'll be down in San Francisco, and working your way all the way across the country.
Do you set out goals for yourself? I mean, when you started out, how was the path for you to, with your career?
Well, the path for me was, a little bit easier, I think, because I grew up in Kansas City, and I don't know, have you ever been there?
I was there. I almost went up to that. What is that big? The Arch?
Oh, that's actually St. Louis.
Oh,
but they're
well,
only 400 miles apart,
hey,
or something like that. Yeah, it's close. Midwest. It's for all those of you listening, like who've been in the Midwest, you all know every city's the same. You got your train yards. That's the area that smells funny in the town. Then you got your downtown, which is broken down and it's just now getting fixed up and renovated after about 60 years. Then you got a highway that goes through the middle, and then possibly a 50-50 chance of a river. And then that's pretty much every Midwest town right there. But started in Kansas City, and after about a year of that, I was in college at the time, and I had a good friend of mine named Rick Ingram who was doing comedy with me, and there's 2 clubs in the city, so it's like if you really want to pursue comedy, you have to do it outside of the Midwest, or outside of Kansas City, because like I was saying earlier, people are different everywhere. And if you're gonna have a special on TV, or you want to appeal to everybody, not just overweight white people in the Midwest. So and I'm doing that.
Well, so do you draw upon your personal experience to write your material, and is that the best way? I mean, do the best comics, they use real life situations?
In my opinion, the best comics do. It's like watching comedy, being out here, and watching other people develop. I like a comedian that when they get off stage, gets you thinking, or it's like, what, I can't believe that guy saw that, or, like tells you a story, that you learned something from the comic. I appreciate that a lot more. It's harder to kind of put yourself out there as a comedian, to make fun of yourself, or make fun of maybe a certain, story that you're kind of embarrassed about, but, guess what? It's funny. So, might as well let everyone else in on the same story.
Well, you say that. I mean, are there times when you talk about stuff that is too personal, or where do you draw the line?
Kind of. Like, yes, I would say, but I just kind of scrapped it. I remember when I have like a couple edgy jokes, and I remember the first time my parents were going to come out and watch, and I remember before the show, I was like, you know what? I'm an adult now, or at least legally I am. I'll just do it, whatever. And now before my shows, when my relatives see me, they go, all right, remember to keep it clean. And I always respond with, don't worry, I just took a shower about 2 hours ago, so I'll be fine.
What about working blue? I know that, some clubs, that's kind of you work blue. But I mean, do you have to taper your act based on where you're playing?
Yeah, I think so. For me right now, a lot of the clubs, It's a mix of everything, because when you do work blue, you're gonna offend some people just with the language. You know, some people will get offended maybe with the content, but I'm not too edgy as a comic, and and some people are offended easy and all that stuff. But ultimately, those are just hurdles I have to get over. I can still make that lady laugh even though she's offended, and when you do that, you feel really good. You're like, all right, I'm doing something right here.
Well, it's I think about Don Rickles. I mean,
Yeah,
that guy was
legend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he did it in such a way that I don't think he really offended anybody, but he really like went after people. But I've seen other comics that there used to be this guy that would go, I'm going to cut off your neck and S down your throat, and that I think that's kind of
that might be a little over the edge, compared to Rickles, but yeah, I definitely see what you're saying, like especially with Rickles, because what always amazed me was how quick he was, and quick-witted, and just I remember reading a story about him being in Vegas, and like he was sitting around with Frank Sinatra. Or no, Frank Sinatra, excuse me, was at another table over, and I guess he'd gone over there and was like, hey, I'm with this date, I'm going to walk by, or like, you mind walking by and saying hi? So sure enough, Sinatra comes by and says, hey, hey, Don, how's it going? And he just like shushed him off and like was like, I don't care, just keep walking. But it's like, that's a perfect example right there, of just, I don't know, comedians, we never stop. It's always got to be a joke somewhere.